Fuck Boston.
Boston, what happened? My God, what a weekend, my boys. What a weekend of NBA basketball, the playoffs, that first round, man. Let's just get into it. It was absolutely insane. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 4 of the Crashing Out podcast. I am your host, Hollywood Hogan. Look, I know I'm already ready to talk about the NBA playoffs and NBA basketball, but before we do, I have to pay my respects to John Sterling, who passed away this morning. If you're watching this, you're most likely watching on a Tuesday on May 5th. I am filming it on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. As you can clearly see, I'm holding up a lightsaber mic today. Changing it up a bit, my boys. But yeah, John Sterling, the voice of the Yankees, passed away this morning. If you grew up watching the Yankees, you know who this is. He had some of the most iconic calls of any Yankee broadcaster ever. John Sterling was just an absolute legend. He is to the Yankees what Chick Hearn was to the Lakers. So I would love to pay my respect to him. If you're asking what my favorite John Sterling call, it's whenever Giancarlo Stanton hits a home run. A Stantonian bomb from Giancarlo. I used to love that. Gave me chills till this day. So a tip to the cap to Mr. Sterling. Rest in peace to you, brother. You were an absolute legend. And a tough way to start the week, a tough news to start the day. But my boys, let's get right into the NBA playoffs. And we got to talk about it. The Boston Celtics, for the first time in their franchise history, choked a 3-1 series lead. Now, I know all their fans are trying to be like revisiting history, saying that they didn't have it that year, that they weren't really contenders, that it was honestly a gap year. I call Fugazi, my boys. These guys were the 2 seed all season long. They didn't have Tatum for 90% of it. Jaylen Brown was at some times a legitimate MVP candidate. I didn't really think he was. I thought he was absolutely an all-star, maybe even a contender for all NBA first team. But I never really had him as an NBA MVP candidate. I know ESPN, those suckers, Dumb and Dumber over there, Perkins and Stephen A, really wanted to push Jaylen Brown as an MVP candidate. But like I never really saw that as something that could possibly happen. And they go into this series, man. No Joel Embiid for the first 3 games. He did not play. The dude had his pancreas taken out weeks prior. And you still choke a 3-1 series lead. And it's all simply because of this. It's not because of the things that Mr. Jaylen Brown said on his Twitch stream, which is absolutely crazy, may I say. For you to choke a 3-1 series lead, and 24 hours later, while there's other Game 7 games going on on a glorious, beautiful Sunday afternoon, you go to Twitch to complain about the referees, to call Joel Embiid a flopper, to say that the referees have an agenda against you. Now, look, usually I'm not one to defend NBA referees. I'm with Jalen on this. They're pretty awful. And the flopping thing, it's been an issue for years now. I don't see it going away anytime soon. But what I will say is I don't want to see my star player on Twitch 24 hours after we choked the biggest game of the season on our home court. Now, you can make all the excuses you want, Jalen, but the real issue at hand is this. You lived and died by the 3. You shot, not just you, but the entire team shot 27% from 3 on 42 attempts in that Game 7. That has been the biggest issue with the Boston Celtics, but you can't lose that series and all of a sudden become the victims or try to reverse it and say that like you guys never were serious contenders, Dave Portnoy, because you guys were. You guys were contenders. You made a win-now trade at the deadline by acquiring Nikola Vucevic from the Bulls. You brought back Jason Tatum. You might have even rushed him, I thought, because I really believed that Tatum wasn't going to play this year because originally, yeah, you're right. It was going to be a gap year. But you guys were killing it. And you guys made win-now moves to the point where Brad Stevens, just a week ago, was awarded the Executive of the Year. What ended up happening, and also let's bring up the point that in Game 5, the Boston Celtics had a double-digit lead, and they blew it. There's only so many threes that this team could rely on that eventually it's going to break their back, and that's exactly what happened. By the way, bravo to Joel Embiid. The guy was out there with his pancreas taken out. He just had surgery weeks prior. He has no cartilage in his knee. and he absolutely showed up and cooked the Celtics. Tyrese Maxey is a superstar. This team, I got to give credit because I don't see a lot of people giving him his flowers. I'm going to do it right here, right now. Nick Nurse put Joe Mazzulla in an absolute body bag. Put him in a body bag. Absolutely outcoached Joe Mazzulla. And it's kind of like what happened last season with Joe Mazzulla. Now, Joe Mazzulla, I know he likes to carry himself like he's the smartest guy in the room, and he likes to carry himself like his shit doesn't stink. And that shtick, the Joe Mazzulla try-hard shtick, it's ran its course, brother. This is 2 years in a row now that you have been absolutely outcoached by lesser talent. The Celtics team should have beaten the Sixers. The Celtics should have beaten the Knicks last year. The reason the Knicks won is because they made those big-time comebacks in multiple games. The reason why the Sixers won is because they made that big comeback in Game 5, and the Celtics had no way of responding. And now it seems to be a kind of glaring issue with Joe Mazzulla that it's like this team kind of feels one-dimensional, in my opinion. And I think the Sixers took advantage of that. Now, like, you lost to a team that Tyrese Maxey has to do everything. He's the all-star. He is a star. To me, as much as Joel Embiid, if he was healthy, man, this guy would be one of the most talented big men of all time. He's a former MVP. The fact that he came back from what he's dealing with and put on the show that he did, bravo, Joel. Bravo. That was amazing. Tyrese Maxey put that game away. You're getting production from a rookie in VJ Edgecombe, which I am super high on. I'm a big-time VJ Edgecombe fan. Paul George, he made the shots he needed to make when it mattered the most. Now, obviously, Paul George is a shell of himself. You're paying him max money to be a max player. He has not been that in the 2 years that he's been in Philadelphia. But when he needed to step up, he absolutely did. So all the excuses that the Celtics are parading around the last 48, 72 hours, I call fugazi, my boys. You guys were the better team. You had the 3-1 lead. You only had Tatum. You had Tatum for all 6 of the 7 games. You missed him for 1 game, but you still should have been able to get the job done because you pretty much did that in the regular season for 90% of it until he finally did return. You started such a weird lineup. The fact that you traded for Vucevic and you can't even rely on him that much, and then you hyped up drafting Hugo, and Hugo didn't do much the entire series. I just feel like this was a total utter collapse by the Boston Celtics. Since the Super Bowl, Bostonians have been having one of the worst sports years they've ever had. And I have been loving every single second of it, my boys. I mean, it starts with the Super Bowl. The Patriots get absolutely demolished by the Seattle Seahawks. Then Mike Vrabel gets caught cheating on his wife with an NFL reporter. Oh, and by the way, while all this is happening, the Boston Red Sox are having one of the worst starts to a season in Red Sox history, to the point where they fire their former World Series winning manager, Alex Cora, and now that team doesn't have a manager, and their own players are starting to turn on each other. And then the Celtics choke a 3-1 series lead. This is just paradise for me right now. And I know I'm going to get ragged on by Celtic fans and Boston fans and all those in general, but my team made it to the second round. I can't relate to what you're going through. You probably should have been already celebrating, hoping that the Lakers would choke that 3-0 lead to the Houston Rockets, because we didn't. But you choked a 3-1 series lead. Now, what do the Celtics do moving forward? I don't want to be completely biased and just rag on them. I want to talk about what Boston could do. And it's going to be interesting, man. I know for the next few months, everybody's going to be continuously talking about, should we break up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? As a Boston hater, I would hope they overreacted and traded one of Tatum or Jaylen Brown. I don't think they do. I think Brad Stevens is still one of the best NBA executives in the world of basketball. He's definitely top 2, top 3, in my opinion. Obviously, number 1 in the NBA is Sam Presti, but Brad Stevens is one smart MF, and he'll figure it out. I don't think trading Tatum and Brown solves any of their actual issues. I think the real issue in Boston, I think honestly, it's more coaching than it is Tatum and Brown. I will say Jaylen proclaiming yesterday on his Twitch stream that this was his favorite season of all time was a little weird, because I believe the year that you won the NBA championship and won Finals MVP should be the highlight of your career. But if you're saying it isn't, then that's That's just kind of weird in my opinion. I mean, maybe because the expectations were lowered and nobody really saw the Celtics doing anything this year without Tatum, and Jaylen Brown was able to step up. But from that standpoint, that's kind of selfish, but I get it. It's kind of basically saying, look, I had a better season and I enjoyed this season more being the guy without my co-host than I did when we won a championship together, which is absolutely a crazy thing to say, especially on Twitch 24 hours after you choked a 3-1 series lead. Besides the point. So what can Boston do? I don't really know if there's much they can do. I mean, I think they should probably look at trading Derek White. I believe he still has 3 years on that contract. And Derek White was not great in this series, and now that's becoming a continuous problem for the Celtics. If you have to pick between Pritchard and Derek White, I think I would lean heavily towards giving Pritchard the money and trying to find a way to get out of Derek White's 3-year deal, which is it's still a lot of money that they have to pay him. Again, I think the Vucevic thing did not work. I don't blame them for going after him and landing him. They didn't really give up much. They gave up Simons for what he was on an expiring contract as well. But I don't think Vucevic really fit the mold of what they wanted. I know Boston loves to have their stretch bigs that could shoot, but Vucevic has never been as good as a defender as like guys like Al Horford or Porzingis who fit that role better than Vucevic did. They still drafted well. I think the Celtics will be back. I think this is just a team that is fraudulent, a team that we all thought had the best coach in the Eastern Conference, but at some point realized that he couldn't adjust to what the Sixers were doing, what Nick Nurse was doing, that Joel Embiid return was such a massive upgrade for the Sixers that the Celtics just couldn't handle it. I mean, like they were going up against Andre Drummond and Adam Bona for the first 3 games, so it was easier for the Celtics to flex their muscles and really use their talent to overpower the Sixers at the time. Because at the time, it was just VJ Edgecombe and Maxey that were really carrying that team. And once Joel Embiid came in, you could kind of feel this structural, series-altering move that just changed the entire environment of what Boston was doing the first 4 games of that series. And even then, though, like I mentioned earlier, you had a double-digit lead in game 5, up 3-1, and for whatever reason, everything just collapsed from there. And it's simple to me. They just relied too heavily on 3-point shooters. Joe Mazzulla fumbled the bag, and Nick Nurse absolutely pounced on it. And he did a great job. I think Nick Nurse deserves so much credit for what he was able to do in that series. So yeah, I think the Celtics will be back next year. The Eastern Conference is so weak, and they'll make their roster upgrades. Brad Stevens is a wizard. He's able to convince other teams to take bad contracts and still find value in return. I am not one to doubt Brad Stevens whatsoever. I do think maybe Joe Mazzulla might need an upgrade in his coaching staff, or at least there needs to be some sort of discussion that the Celtics can't rely this heavily on just threes. I mean, I hope they do, because obviously for 2 years in a row, it has not worked. But they have to change something there. And I don't really think the answer is trading for Giannis or breaking up Tatum Brown. I think they just need to restructure what they want to do with those 2 guys as the main centerpieces. I feel like if you trade for Giannis, you're still kind of running into the same problem, because you're going to have to give up stuff, and how are you going to fill the rest of the roster out? And is Joe Mazzulla going to change his coaching philosophy, which 2 years in a row now, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And I think it does, because obviously if you're going to shoot 27% from 3 and shoot 42 threes in the game, you're not going to win many games like that, my boys. And it finally caught up to him. But also, this was one insane weekend for NBA basketball. We saw the Orlando Magic absolutely shit the bed, just let a golden opportunity fall to their waistline, up 60-38, I believe, in game 5 or game 6. And for them to just completely go scoreless for what was almost felt like an entire half of basketball, and let the Pistons regain all the momentum and then close it out yesterday in Detroit in a blowout win for the Pistons, which I'm shocked that the series even won 7 games. I'm shocked the Magic even had a 3-1 series lead. And I believe this is the first time in playoff history, at least NBA playoff history, that we've had 2 teams in the same round come back from 3-1 deficits. which is crazy. You would think that would have happened before. It hasn't. And for the Magic, if you don't know, it has been reported by Shams that the Orlando Magic have fired their head coach, Jamal Mosley. I feel like this was the plan all along. I do wonder if there are people in that front office like a little bit nervous when the Orlando Magic were up 3 games to 1, because the Orlando Magic have been wanting to fire this guy since the play-in started. Maybe hell, they probably been wanting to fire this guy since the All-Star break, and they just kind of have had him there, and then they win the final spot in the play-in tournament. They go up 3 games to 1. They have a 60-38 lead in game 6, and it's all for it to eventually end with them losing game 7. For the second time in Paulo Banchero's career, he loses in game 7, but still drops 38 points. Two times that's happened in his career, which is crazy. And then immediately the next day, they're like, yeah, Mosley, get the hell out. It's like at one point, he's getting fired. At another point, Mosley is keeping his job. Then he's going to get fired again. Then he's keeping it again. Then he's finally fired. What a crazy, crazy story with the Orlando Magic. And so what does the Magic do next? Who do they hire? I think Billy Donovan was destined to always eventually end up with the Orlando Magic. Now, I know there's other reports out there that the Orlando Magic are considering Tom Thibodeau. I don't think Thibodeau fits with Orlando, not because I don't think Thibodeau is a decent coach. I think he is an upgrade from Mosley. I think Thibodeau, though, the style he coaches, the way he coaches, the minutes that he distributes, for guys like Franz Wagner, who has had an array of injuries, especially leg injuries, that would be a bad head coaching hire for him. Somebody like Paulo Banchero, who also seems a little stubborn, but also has a lot of injury history. Same with Jalen Suggs. Do you really want to bring in Thibodeau, who just his biggest issue for Thibodeau's entire coaching career is that he overplays his starters. He plays them so much during the regular season, and by the time the playoffs come around, these guys are absolutely cooked. And with guys like Wagner and Banchero and Suggs, who have a laundry list of injuries, I don't know if that's a match made in heaven. And I don't even really know if Billy Donovan makes a lot of sense for them, but at least Billy Donovan, there's a history there. I want to say in 2008, when Billy Donovan was still with the Florida Gators, he agreed to become the Orlando Magic coach, had a press conference and everything. And then I believe 24 hours later, he got cold feet and asked the Orlando Magic if he could just get out of his contract and go back to the Florida Gators, which has ended up happening. And then a few years later, Billy Donovan ends up in OKC. So I think it was destined for Billy Donovan to end up with the Orlando Magic. The guy's very well known, very well respected in the Florida area, obviously because of what he did with the Gators. And he goes to an Orlando team that he could maybe get more out of and grow with. I mean, he's pretty much up there age-wise. He's been in the league for a minute now. But I think he can get something out of Banchero, maybe something out of Wagner. His stints, his last 2 stints, his ending in OKC and in Chicago, it just doesn't give you much hope that this guy's going to be a good or decent NBA head coach anymore. It kind of feels like the NBA has kind of passed his way. And I feel like if I'm Billy Donovan, and yeah, the Orlando Magic job was always supposed to be yours, I think if I were him, I would wait it out. And I would potentially just wait for a college job to open up. I think Billy and college basketball need each other at this point of his career. And I don't know if the Orlando Magic job is really all that compelling. Now, we got to remember, Orlando Magic really don't have the assets to do much moving forward. Desmond Bane, he was okay. Not the guy that you would want to give up 4 first-round picks for, though. They gave up a haul to get Desmond Bane, and it didn't move the needle. Your highlight of the season was being up 3-1, and your other highlight of the season was being up 60-38 in Game 6. And the results of those 2 highlights are losing Game 7 and your season being over. So I don't know what the Orlando Magic do. I don't think, obviously, they wanted Mosley gone. They got him gone. Do they go Thibodeau? I don't think Thibodeau works. Do they go Billy Donovan? Maybe. I mean, just because he had the job before doesn't mean he should get the job again. I mean, you have to go through a real good coaching search. If I were Orlando, and I know they don't have the funds for this because Orlando doesn't really like to spend all that much money. It's been their downfall for so many years. Obviously, with Shaquille O'Neal, they didn't want to give him his cash. With Dwight Howard, eventually at some point, that whole thing broke down and they had to trade him. It's really shocking to me that more teams that fire their coaches haven't reached out to Dan Hurley. Now, granted, I don't think Dan Hurley is in a rush to leave Connecticut, But I think at some point, Dan Hurley's going to want to test the NBA waters. And if you're a team like Orlando, hell, if you're a team like Milwaukee, who just inexplicably had one of the worst coaching searches ever, just gave their head coaching job to Taylor Jenkins. And don't get me wrong, I think Taylor Jenkins is an okay coach, but he's very flawed as well. There's a reason why Memphis moved on for him. There's a reason why he didn't get that much out of that Memphis core those few years ago. And then Milwaukee just inexplicably only interview him and then give him the job immediately. Very uninspiring hire by the Bucks. And I feel like the Orlando Magic might be kind of in that mix to make another uninspiring head coach and hire. But it's like somebody like Dan Hurley's out there, and you can maybe poach him from UConn by just giving him a huge sum of money, and you feel like you're just a head coach away from being a serious contender. I don't see why Orlando doesn't do that. If I were them, I would look into it. But if I had to guess, I think Billy Donovan will end up as the head coach of the Orlando Magic. And again, I don't think that really is going to move a needle. Just like I didn't think the Desmond Bane trade was going to move a needle, and it ended up not doing that. Like, Desmond Bane's a decent player, but 4 first-round picks? 4 first-round picks? That's insane. That's crazy to me, or at least in my opinion. But yeah, also let's get into the other teams that ended up losing this last weekend. Denver Nuggets, what an absolute failure of a playoff run. I mean, they had a injured, wounded Minnesota team. No Dante, who blew out his Achilles, the number 0 curse. Anthony Edwards' knee absolutely cooked for that game 6. And surprisingly, though, by the way, update, Anthony Edwards, breaking news, is playing against San Antonio in game 1. They thought this guy was going to be out for multiple weeks. They thought it was going to be a week-to-week basis type of injury. He's playing game 1. Now, I don't know if I would risk it if I'm Minnesota, but I got to respect it from Ant-Man. This guy's a dog, man. This guy has that dog in him, and he's ready for the moment. He's been to the conference finals before. He wants to get back to that spot. He wants to make to the NBA finals. I wouldn't risk it, especially game 1. I would have maybe told Ant-Man, look, let's kind of have game 1 be the fill-out game. And then we'll discuss it and cross that bridge. Game 2, he wants to play. They're going to allow him to play. Bravo to Ant-Man for stepping up, especially for game 1. That's crazy. But yeah, man, I think Denver, what a colossal failure this season was. I thought the Nuggets had one of the best off seasons of any team in the league. You know, they brought back Bruce Brown. They brought in Valanciunas. They trade Michael Porter Jr., who they essentially wanted to blame everything on. They bring in Cam Johnson. They bring in Tim Hardaway Jr. Like, this team was fully loaded. They got an all-star season from Jamal Murray, his first of his career. Now, granted, I know Aaron Gordon dealt with a lot of injuries, which makes sense now with the reports that the Denver Nuggets might move on from Aaron Gordon in his contract. To me, Denver mismanaged this roster and their assets. Christian Braun does not deserve the money he's being paid. Christian Braun's contract reminds me of something the Lakers did a few years ago. The Lakers a few years ago, I want to say the summer of 2021, let Alex Caruso go. They let him walk to Chicago and decided to pay Talen Horton-Tucker a huge sum of money because they bought into his potential. So the Denver Nuggets essentially did the same thing. They bought into Christian Braun's potential. And that kid has not stepped up the same way Talen Tucker hasn't stepped up. THT is basically out of the league at this point. Christian Braun on that contract is just it's unplayable. And I don't know any team that's going to step up to want to acquire him at that contract. Like, the guy is being paid millions. It has not progressed whatsoever. And I know how that feels. Again, I saw that with Talen Horton-Tucker. Talen Horton-Tucker is out of the league. And Alex Caruso is thriving in OKC. He's now a 2-time champion. It was one of the worst decisions that Rob Pelinka and the Lakers ever made. And I feel like the Denver Nuggets kind of put themselves against the wall when they decided to pay Christian Braun all that money. And now you look at their roster and it's kind of like, well, what can they realistically do? I don't see them trading Jamal Murray. Obviously, they're not going to trade Jokic. Cam wasn't the upgrade from Michael Porter that they thought it was going to be. Bruce Brown, as cool as he is, as much of a fan favorite he is, he didn't really get them over the edge like he did the year they won the championship. Adelman doesn't have any sauce, man. He's auraless. And like, I know that but essentially what happened with Mike Malone is they fired Mike Malone because they wanted to keep Adelman around, which is crazy because I feel like Mike Malone was able to get more out of this Nuggets roster than Adelman was. I think Adelman, as much as he's respected as a basketball mind, because the guy, obviously, his father was a great coach for Sacramento for all those years. He, I feel like, is respected for his basketball intellect and his basketball IQ. But when it comes down to these playoff games, I don't think this team respects him the same way they respected Mike Malone. Now, obviously, they're not going to make a coaching change and they want to stick with him. That's their guy. It has to be their guy. You fired your NBA champion coach to make sure you kept this guy and made him your guy. It's going to be a very interesting summer for the Denver Nuggets. I think my biggest question with Denver is, what does Jokic do? Is he content with the way things are going in Denver? How much longer does Nikola Jokic want to do this? Because, like, I've always said this privately, obviously not on the pod, not yet, until now, that Jokic, I feel like he treats basketball like a job, and he doesn't treat it like a passion. His passion are horses, and I respect that. That's totally cool. But what happens the day Jokic's like, you know what, man? I just don't want to do this anymore. So how does that contract extension look? Do they want to give him the Supermax, which they absolutely should? It shouldn't even be a debate. It shouldn't even be a question. But what does Jokic do? Is this a scenario that he wants to still continue to be a part of? Does he feel like this team has enough to compete still? And does he even care about that too? Like, that's another question. Does he even really care if this team isn't championship caliber team, but at least they're good enough to make the playoffs and still contend in some way? If the ball bounces their way one way or another, maybe they're just unlucky. It's kind of hard to know what Jokic wants because the guy is kind of so closed off and only wants to talk about his horses. So I think Denver has a lot of bridges to cross and a lot of discussions to make internally to see what they can do. I don't see a pathway of them making themselves better. I feel like this last offseason was their best offseason. And now it's kind of like, how do you duplicate that? But also, what do you do with Aaron Gordon? That's a hefty contract. Christian Brown, a hefty contract. I don't see teams lining up to just take those guys off of Denver's hands and give them cap relief. I really don't. I don't see a team wanting that unless certain assets are attached to those players. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Denver does. I think this was a colossal failure by them. They should have beaten this Minnesota team. And I think Chris Finch proved once again that he is one of the best coaches in the NBA. What that team was able to do, especially without Ayo in Game 6, to still have Jaden McDaniels step up and put the Nuggets away, especially this Nuggets roster, the best they've had since their championship season, was super, super impressive. And now we get Minnesota, San Antonio, Anthony Edwards playing Game 1, as I mentioned earlier. To me, that this series is going to be a bloodbath. You have a very, very, very experienced team in Minnesota and a very talented but inexperienced team in San Antonio. You're going to have Wemby versus Rudy Gobert, De'Aaron Fox versus Anthony Edwards, and it's going to come down, like it always does, to the role players. What can the role players pull off? Who has the better system in place? I am low-key, depending how Anthony Edwards looks today, because today will be the feel-out game. If Ant-Man is even at 90%, I kind of like Minnesota's chances to beat San Antonio. And I think it's going to come down to Chris Finch and experience. I think the experience with Minnesota and their coaching will be too much for San Antonio to handle. And look, don't get me wrong. I think Wemby by himself could absolutely do it, and he could absolutely single-handedly drag the Spurs to the Western Conference Finals. But this Minnesota team, man, they're a resilient team. And I just do not see them bending over backwards for Wembanyama or De'Aaron Fox or Stephen Castle or Harper or any of that, or those guys on that squad. I think this Minnesota team is locked and loaded. I think their confidence is through the roof. So my prediction for Minnesota, San Antonio, I have Minnesota winning in 7 games. Now, let's get in to the other Western Conference matchup, Lakers-OKC. Now, I know a lot of people are just expecting OKC to sweep this Laker team. I think this Laker team is too resilient, too tough, too well coached to just bend over backwards. Now, none of the games with OKC this season have been close. It's been an absolute bloodbath. They're one of the best teams of all time. I think JJ yesterday compared this Thunder team to like the 96 Bulls, 97 Bulls, the 17 Warriors. And I happen to agree. This is one of the best teams we've ever seen. This Warriors team is a fully loaded Death Star, and it is fully operational, and it is ready to kick ass. And the only way the Lakers could possibly win is if they catch them slipping. And I feel like the Lakers, as underdogs, could possibly do that. I don't. I know. Look, I don't ever want to say my team's going to lose. I'm never going to sit here and be like, yeah, we have no shot against the. No, f that. The Lakers can handle business. LeBron James has played so amazingly well. And like, I'm not even thinking about the wins and losses. I just want to enjoy this for what it is. And I love this Laker team. They're resilient, man. They have had their backs against their walls multiple times throughout the season. The injuries, the drama, the bullshit that they have gone through as a collective group, they have stood the test of time, and they have battled back when it looks like, hey, this team is cooked. Every time I think this team might be done, they find something and they drag it out of themselves and they put up a W. You know, after that game 5 in LA, where, by the way, the crypto arena audience, the fans that go to these Laker playoff games, I'm going to need you guys to be a little bit more electric, because that game 5 against Houston, you guys sounded like it was a regular season game. Okay, the Oklahoma City Thunder don't have to ask this from their fans. Tuesday, you guys are probably watching this podcast on Tuesday, when the game starts, look how insane those Thunder fans are. I need the Laker fans that are going to game 3 and 4 to be as electric and as motivated and as loud as the Thunder fans are, because that game 5 against Houston was absolutely embarrassing. Those fans sounded dead. It sounded like it was like a regular season game. It's the playoffs. We're Laker fans. Act like it. Now, I know the reason why that this is happening is because the ticket prices are so insane. So you're pricing out your real fans out. Well, dude, if you have a chance to go to a playoff game and you're just going to sit there quietly, that's shameful. Very shameful. I need Laker fans to pick up the energy if you're going to these playoff games, man. Gonna have to happen. You're going to have to lock in. You're going to have to do your part as fans if you're going to these games. But this series, man, it has the potential to either be an absolute blowout sweep, Thunder in 4, or it could be a long series again. I could see the Lakers pushing this to 6 or 7 games. And also the elephant in the room. When does Luka return? Is it game 3? Is it game 4? Is it ever again for this rest of the season? It's still a lingering issue. We don't really have an answer. There really hasn't been that many updates. And the updates that we do get, it comes from different sources and they're told different things. You know, I know Brian Windhorst today was saying that he's not close, that Luka hasn't even started running. And I've heard that from other sources as well. But then there's video today of Luka shooting around with Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura. And like at the end of the day, if the Lakers are down 3-0, what's the point of rushing Luka back? This is not an injury that you could just, slap together and tell him, hey, go play 10, 15 minutes. It just doesn't work like that. It's a grade 2 hamstring injuries. Those are some of the worst injuries you can get. If you have to make a tier of injuries, it's probably right there lower than like the ACL and the Achilles. Because if the hammy's not working and you force it, that could be a precursor to even more serious injuries. And now you're not just talking about a month-long absence. Now you're talking about potentially season-ending absence. That's how delicate the hamstring injuries are. So I don't know when Luka comes back, but I do think if the Lakers play the way they played game 1, game 2, game 3, and game 6 against Houston, they have a chance to make this a pretty interesting, lengthy series. It can either go 2 ways. It depends. Is OKC completely locked in? Then the Lakers have no shot. If OKC plays with their food and the Lakers take advantage of that, then the Lakers could make this a lengthy series. At this point, the Lakers are pretty much playing with their money. And at this point, you just want to see this team continue to compete. I love this team, no matter what ends up happening. Even if we get swept, which I hope not, I want to see this team fight again. I will have my utmost respect for them, because they could have laid down and just got absolutely dismantled by the Houston Rockets, but they didn't. They fought, and they fought tooth and nail, and they now have a first round series win, which is what JJ Redick absolutely needed after last year. After he got absolutely outcoached by Chris Finch last year against Minnesota, JJ Redick needed to prove to us, that roster, and himself that he could win a first round series in the playoffs. And he did it in worse circumstances. Like, without your star player, without Austin Reeves for the first 4 games, right? I think, yeah, Austin didn't play the first 4 games. And a 41-year-old LeBron James and Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard, LeBron and friends, beat the Houston Rockets in 6 games. That's a W. That's a W. And it's a W that JJ Redick should put on his resume because he absolutely coached his ass off and he got the job done. And now we know as fans that he can get the job done and win the series. It's all about progression, I feel like, with this Laker team. It's all about what they can get better at. And if they can make this a battle with OKC, to me, that's only another thing you could put to JJ's resume. And I feel like if this team does make it a series against the Thunder, why not run it back? Maybe add some better additions here and there. I know absolutely without a shadow of a doubt Marcus Smart needs to be a Laker next season. He should be one of the top priorities other than re-signing Rudy Bond and re-signing Austin Reeves. I think priority number 3 should be giving Marcus Smart a 2-year, 3-year deal to keep him in LA. This guy, without him, the Lakers don't have a shot against Houston. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Marcus Smart and the way he plays against OKC. That matchup between him and Shea is going to be glorious basketball, and I can't wait to see. I just hope the referees don't blow the whistle too much because that might eventually hurt the entire integrity of the game. I just want to see these two teams go at it. You have one of the best teams we've ever seen in Oklahoma City Thunder against 41-year-old LeBron James. We don't know how much longer we're going to get of this LeBron. So just enjoy the moment. If you're a Laker fan, enjoy the moment. I will tell you this. Again, it's either going to be OKC in 5, this is my prediction, or Lakers in 6. Book me in for that. Lakers in 6, my boys. I'm rolling with that. I think that's what's going to end up happening. Let's go to the Eastern Conference. Knicks Sixers. Now, I feel bad for the Sixers. Obviously, they barely got a day of rest. Who knows how ready Joel Embiid's going to be, even though he says he's going to play. We know that dude is just taking so much damage. And to only have 1 day to go from Boston now to go to New York and prepare for that. I do like Nick Nurse a lot, and I think Nick Nurse will be the difference between this being a short series or a long series. I think Nick Nurse can coach circles around Mike Brown. The problem is I do think that the Knicks will win this series in 5 games. I think they have too much size to combat against Joel Embiid with Mitch Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns. I feel like they have the wing defenders to throw at Tyrese Maxey and VJ Exum. And so with all that being said, I have the Knicks beating the Sixers in 5 games. And let me say this, if you're a Knicks fan, it has never been more wide open as it is right now for you guys to make the finals for the first time since 1999. The door is jarred open. The Celtics are not going to hurt you. They're out. The Cavs, they looked not that great against Toronto in that 7-game series. The Pistons, I still feel like they're inexperienced. This is the time for the Knicks. If it's not this year, it might not ever happen. The road is wide open. The door is wide open for the New York Knicks to make the finals. It's up to them, and I do think they will make the finals. If I had to make a prediction right now that the Celtics are out, because I did originally pick the Celtics to play the Thunder in the NBA Finals, I think we're going to see the Thunder versus the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals. As for Cleveland Pistons, I expect that series to go 7 games. I think they're going to go 7 games, bloodbath. I think those two teams are evenly matched, evenly coached. And once again, it's hard for me to pick a James Harden team. I do not trust the James Harden playoff team. I just don't. So I will say Pistons in 7. And we get Pistons Knicks, which is what the Pistons really want. The Pistons have been eyeing the Knicks since last year's playoff series. And I think Knicks Pistons is going to be blockbuster TV. And then I'm almost likely to get Thunder, Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. So yeah, man, the NBA playoffs have been, in my opinion, outstanding. I have loved every second of it. It's been unpredictable. It has been shocking. It has been intense. I feel like as bad as the referees can be, that's the only thing I'll agree with Jaylen Brown. It's not the only reason why you lost. But yeah, the referees have been pretty horrid. That's a given. I feel like the unpredictability of the playoffs have been awesome. I think it's added an extra layer to the game that we missed. Like there's levels to this, my boys. The regular season does not compare at all to playoff basketball, at all. And I think with all that being said, I would hope for the unpredictability to continue in the second round. I want to see some upsets. I want to see some shockers. I want to see some teams step up to the moment and show the world like, hey, like you might not think we could do this, but hey, we can. And I'm very interested for all these series. So yeah, my boys, with all that being said, I hope the playoffs continue the way they've been going. I really hope the second round isn't just a wash. It has the potential to be, which is what kind of scares me a little bit. But I hope we still continue to get the unpredictability, because that has been really fueling my love for the game again. The playoffs have been crazy, dude. From 2-3-1 series comebacks to the Denver Nuggets absolute collapse against a worse Minnesota team that was absolutely covered in injuries, to the Lakers and LeBron James giving us his greatest hits, and at 41 years old eliminating a way younger Houston team without Austin Reeves for 4 games and without Luka Doncic completely. Just absolutely crazy basketball is being played right now. The NBA playoffs is really peaking. I just really hope the second round isn't a complete utter wash and it's not interesting because the great teams just advance. I want to see some chaos again, and I want the drama because it is the NBA playoffs. But yeah, as always, my boys, if you like this episode, like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know, what do you think is going to happen in the second round of the NBA playoffs? What do you think is the reason why the Boston Celtics choked their first ever 3-1 series lead to the Philadelphia 76ers? Let me know what you guys want me to talk about in the very next episode of the Crash It Now podcast. Hit the notification button so you're notified when I drop a brand new video. This next coming days are going to be pretty busy, my boys. Just want to give you guys a heads up. If you guys are watching this on Tuesday, so yesterday I dropped the Odyssey trailer. If you haven't seen my reaction to that, go check that out. A lot of new trailers dropping this week, my boys, and we're going to be covering all of them. Go check them out if you have missed the previous videos I have uploaded. I will see you guys on the very next episode of the Crash It Now podcast, airing every single Tuesday morning. My boys, my name is Holguin Holguin. I will see you guys next week. And may the 4th be with you.